In 2018, after 22 years, a transgendered woman relocated from Marion to the southeast side of Fort Wayne, Indiana. She promptly settled in and adopted a cat and a dog in 2021. In the fall of 2022, she hooked up with a meteorologist who was a University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill 2006 graduate and got her pregnant with twin daughters after moving to the northeast side of Fort Wayne. Today, Caprice, Ella, Brianna, Ava, Lisa, and Sierra still call the northeast side of Fort Wayne home. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire Caprice and Ella.
Desire of mine with me.
I remember. Season and I were having the newsroom meeting at around 2 p.m. when the news broke. I was like, oh, my. We were jumping up and down in joy, while I am sure people in Marion were stunned.
I was shocked. I was stunned.
My reaction on February 23, 2018, when Ava announced she was relocating from Marion to Fort Wayne was something my mom, the late Robin Hurd, who was Ava's first friend, wanted. Since I was already living in Fort Wayne, I was not surprised when Ava set foot in Fort Wayne as a resident.
I learned the news from my daughter, Jenna, and Ava's transgendered daughter, Tiffany. My daughter was at the time 6 months pregnant with my granddaughter, Allison. They were also thinking about moving from Marion to Fort Wayne.
My reaction from when Ava actually set foot in Fort Wayne as a resident was, wow. It is happening. Ava is going to recover after all the years of setbacks in Marion.
It is approximately 2 o'clock on the 6th of May of 2018. And I'm going to give you up to date on my relocation to Fort Wayne. And as you may have noticed, if you hadn't been following me recently, if everything goes right up in Fort Wayne, I could be moving up there as early as, and I'm very serious, as early as next Monday. That's the 14th of May, okay? And I'm currently at my storage unit up on the northeast side here in Marion. And a lot of you are now starting to complain, and a lot of you are wondering, oh, how is he ever going to get the... Well, I've already told you about the fact that I've decided to hire a delivery boy or a delivery girl to assist me in the move. But I want to show you, if you just follow me here. Now behind me here is what you may have noticed, and just talk about being very, very resourceful. This is what I've been using. I've done this before, and I've probably won't be able to do it again in another few years. So, and for those of you who have been telling me, Oh, I'm sorry. I don't like the way you do things. Well, you know what? If you're one of these people who are saying that, and if you don't like the way I'm doing things, or should I say if you don't like the way Ava Zen's doing things, well, I'm sorry to say it, but that's just too freaking bad. You know, obviously this would have been averted if I had my first driver's license 20 years ago. But once I moved to Fort Wayne, that's probably likely going to change. And permanently resolve all this. Permanently resolve all issues I'm facing right now in Marion. Now this is really hell. But there's a good reason. I have no car. I have asked for help many, many times, and only 10% have been successful. Because this is a historic week. If everything goes right, like I said, to repeat, if everything goes according to plans, if everything goes smoothly, I could be in Fort Wayne as early as next Monday. And I've made up a decision to acquire a U-Haul rental truck. I'm going to pay for it, pump the gas, and unfortunately, I have to be present at all times. That means yours truly has to be present with my delivery girl or delivery boy. Deliver the items up in Fort Wayne.
I realized the moment when Hank Cash and George Williamson, as well as other staff Ava had, were escorted by the Allen County Sheriff's Department once they crossed the Allen County line on Interstate 69 northbound. Took the exit 299 and went eastbound on the Airport Expressway, then Paulding Road, then south on Decatur Road and onto Fayette Drive.
On the surface, Ava's move to Fort Wayne could have been hamstrung, as it had to purchase additional resources. However, the move from Marion to Fort Wayne, and the rise of LGBT, rejuvenated Ava. Especially with the rise of Vote for the Girls, Queen of the Willis, Retail Nightmares, and Caprice and Ella.
I remember a conversation with Rachel Pasalt and the late Frank Davidson in the newsroom in 2020, realized when I learned Vote for the Girls was ending in May 2021 after 12 seasons. I knew Fort Wayne was the right place for Ava Zinn, as well as Ava's daughters Samantha and Tiffany, my daughter Jenna, and Samantha's husband, Martin. I did not want to believe it at the time, but I do now. 1,820 days ago, and Ava's move to Fort Wayne still makes Grant County, Indiana sick, but Trey Shaw, Maribel, Rachel, and the lucky few knew.
And I want to bring you up to date on a story I've been following for several weeks now. And I've been telling you about this for some time. I had just got off the phone with Brennan Wood Park Apartments up on over in Fort Wayne. And unfortunately for the folks in Marion who are watching this, this is going to mean some heartbreaking news. And there are going to be some very happy folks on State Boulevard over at Park Center. And now some very happy folks on Fayette Drive up in Fort Wayne. Now, I can also tell you that as far as what will be the final Marion store, it's likely going to be either the Pilot Flying J or Ruler Foods or what used to be Marsh. Anyway, back to a lot of big changes. I've been telling you about this for some time now. Now, like I said, I have moving quotes. And worst case scenario, it is looking to be about $900. And that means that is going to be via Pods and Greyhound. Just got off the phone with Brennanwood Park Apartments up in Fort Wayne, and my application has been approved, and have already gotten moving quotes, and I will have more information on this story, or I should say on this development, on avazen.com.
Ava was getting basically nowhere, if not even worse than falling behind as a resident of Marion.
Ava Zinn had a wandering eye, and from 2008 until the actual move, I tracked Ava down to Kokomo, Muncie, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh.
I remember when Ava actually went to Pittsburgh to audition at Heinz Field, and Ava was saying, "The audition changed my life," even though I never got the opportunity to meet Steven Tyler, Jennifer Lopez, and Randy Jackson. It sure did put Vote for the Girls on the map for good. Jessica Sanchez was saved from elimination in that season of American Idol, and the following season Vote for the Girls finally got the first victory the following season. I felt really great about Ava's relocation, as it basically rejuvenated Ava after languishing for the last 16 years in Marion. Once Ava actually set foot in Fort Wayne as a resident and set foot in Marion as a visitor, and back to Fort Wayne in June 2018.
I already knew Ava Zinn had fans in Fort Wayne. I remember cars were honking and people were cheering. But in Marion, a lot of anger, shock, and people in disbelief. People were stunned and surprised. I even remember hearing one of Ava's good friends, Kayla Badishil, and Marion Police Captain Amber Richards, being in tears that day. I'm sure that Wendy Becker Strickland, Veronica Schmerber, Talisa Hunt, and those friends Ava left behind were mad, humiliated, betrayed, and wanting to start a riot and cause mayhem. I specifically told Hank and George to make sure people in Marion and Grant County did not start a riot or protest rally.
It may be the 1st of June of 2018, and my final first Friday in Marion, Indiana, is now in the history books. Now, as you know, I had some unfinished business in Marion, and support here has been very amazing. And I want to say hello to Amber Sutton watching. And earlier tonight we seen, or should I say, I've seen familiar faces. Several of my neighbors in I was neighbors with in Marion, and a big shout out to Elena Goins. I tagged her earlier on Facebook. Also, a former Carry Services colleague of mine, Bill Rock, over at that Tenderloin area here, I'm pointing at. And I want to say thank you, Marion, for 22 wonderful years. The city has been amazing, but unfortunately, it was time for me to move on when that U-Haul truck arrived at 29th and Carey here in Marion and headed up north, Interstate 69, all the way to Fayette Drive in Fort Wayne. And things changed for the better. It's gonna get, this is gonna get bigger and better than ever. Or should I say yours truly is. Because my entire family is here. Many of my staff from Avenson Holdings, also from both of the girls. And I want to say hello to Tycee Simpson and Casey Watson. Or should I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Casey Watson. Or should I say Casey Walton? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. And as I said earlier, hello Tycee. It's what may have taken 4 hours to everything loaded onto the U-Haul and get it to Fort Wayne actually took yours truly 10 years and $20,000. That went to this move to Fort Wayne of mine. But nonetheless, I'll be here in Marion until Monday afternoon. And a big surprise. And you're hearing this first right here from this webmaster's mouth, Ava Zen. I will be returning to my high school alma mater, Mississinewa High School. And it is going to be the first time as a woman. So, I want to say an advanced congratulations to the entire class of 2018. I know my daughter, Tiffany, is one of them. And, whoa. My arm's getting a little stiff. And thankfully, I have a good plan on how to get back to Fort Wayne on Monday. And most of the time on paper, a move like this could spell trouble financially. But the results are amazing. I have been rejuvenated. I mean, you gotta understand, this pretty much rejuvenated this lady right here as a Fort Wayne resident in only 2 weeks. That previously languished for 22 years in Marion. I had been in Marion since approximately 11 o'clock, May 31st, and the last store here in Marion I ever went to as a resident is officially Pilot Flying J. And the last time I was at this high school, Mississippi High School, here in Gas City, was May 26th, 2001. And back then, I had graduated here under my previous name before I transitioned to a female. And 17 years later, for the first time since, I am feeling so good to be back in my alma mater, Mississippi High School, and thankfully I got this sweatshirt on. And I hear this place sure has changed since I graduated. So this is a historic. This is obviously historic because almost 3 weeks ago, I had recently relocated from Marion to Fort Wayne. But did it mean I was going to change my alma mater? No. And I want to say in advance to the class of 2018, congratulations already. And earlier today, about not too many minutes ago, said hello to Mrs. Walters, the choir director. And if you watched the class of Ava videos I posted on my YouTube channel, you would know what I was talking about. And in fact, now I'm going to show you right behind me here. Now, right around this area, is where I did a Rap TV broadcast with Justin Plank. So this is really familiar territory to me here. And me and my fellow Ole Miss alumni from 2001. And all I can say is, wow. Wow, wow. Yep. Well, and and I've been informed they will open the doors at 1 o'clock. And this is actually the second time I had ever been at a Mississippi High School graduation ceremony. Last time was, like I said, May 26th, 2001, when I graduated. And 17 years and a week later, June the 3rd, 2018, really glad to be back. Yeah. That's going to bring back a lot of memories. And it's very appropriate that I come down here on this very special occasion. Because in a little over 24 hours, I'd say after almost 20 hours after the graduation ceremony ends, I'll be back in Fort Wayne. So, again, it's great to be back in Gas City, back in my alma mater, to watch a graduation ceremony in person for the last time for now. And I say, help control your child's education, have them immunized, and make Fort Wayne's good news be yours. Well, oh, by the way, I just got a comment from Stacy Parker. This is something I already knew, so. And I'm really happy to pass the torch. And yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I just liked Stacy's comment. And like I said, this is a historic day for me. Just as it was on May 14th, 2018. This is going to be something to remember for me for a long time. I'm at Miskatonic High School, Gas City, Indiana, attending a high school graduation.
After Ava said, I have not any intentions of blankety blank moving. If I did, I'll tell you about it. I already knew from September 30th, 2008 until when Ava made the announcement on February 23, 2018, I realized it was going to happen sooner or later.
One of the few aspects that remained in Marion was the cat pound similar to Cleveland's dog pound and the I-69 airs. Ava Zinn gave fans in the cat pound advance warning of the move from Marion to Fort Wayne, and they were able to remove their equipment before the infamous U-Haul truck arrived. At the time of the move, the fan club signs were being cleaned. Carly Ryder Sr., or Carly Jameson's mother, contacted the owner of the dry cleaners. He was sympathetic, told Carly Sr. where the signs were and allowed her to take the fan bus for a walk. The late Alexandra Moffat and some associates then hid the signs in several storage units in Marion and Muncie until Ava Zinn said they could keep them. The cat pound did stay together, eventually remaining a fan club as it is today and supports itself with a little help from the United Way of Grant County. I remember a good conversation I had with my mother on the day she met Ava in 1989. My mom was wearing that red skirt suit, and she remembered seeing a little boy, none other than who is now Ava, had no one show up to her 6th birthday party on January 4, 1989. Obviously, my mom was 27 and Ava was 6, and despite the 22-year age difference, with the late Holly Everman from Muncie joining as Ava's second friend, Robin, Holly and Ava shared a very special friendship that lasted until my mom's death in 2012 and Holly's death in 2017. Yet I hear Ava is going to do that again as a 40-year-old woman with a couple of younger Ivy Tech Fort Wayne students who are 25 and 22, if I am not mistaken. That special friendship with Holly and my mom is what made Ava declare Van Buren as her hometown.
I was present when Jackson Steele interviewed Ava's daughter Samantha just hours after she graduated from Marion High School at 5 p.m. on June 3, 2012. Ava did what every parent was supposed to do, as she wanted Samantha to focus on her studies and graduate high school and college before pursuing acting and broadcasting, and sure enough, Samantha said she was waiting until the fall of 2013 to attend Indiana Wesleyan University, primarily her desire to avoid the same mistakes Ava and Samantha's paternal grandmother, Margaret, aka Ava's mom, made when they were growing up. Samantha was my intern for 4 years, and I remember overhearing Samantha stating, "There are so many mistakes my father made that I promised my grandma that I would never repeat once I graduated from high school. Number 1, my dad's high school prom and her subsequent dismissal from IWU, and if you were to see my dad and I together as father and daughter, you would clearly do not see that kind of relationship, but more like a sisterhood after a brother has a sex change. I did take a guy to my high school prom in my senior year, fared 40 times pleasanter than my dad's, which everybody knows Ava, what happened, and eventually she stripped the title away from the prom date and give it to someone else. Another thing was when I did sit foot at IWU in the fall of 2013, I saw a reflection of my father, and it reflects what we're going through as a state here in Indiana. I just felt, with Mitch Daniels and the new energy he's been bringing, that it is time for some fresh hope and new attitudes. Then, in terms of me as a presenter, because I'd been presenting series about my own self-reflection, I just thought it was time for me to start presenting shows about something else.
I see all positives of Ava Zinn living in Fort Wayne. If you were to compare Ava as a 6-year-old boy in 1989 or as an 18-year-old guy in 2001 against Ava as a 40-year-old woman in 2023, a clear difference and stark contrast aside from the weight gain. The breasts, the femininity, the outfits. Big difference from the suit and ties and dress shirts and slacks before her gender transition that began December 1st of 2004.
I already knew Ava Zinn's fate in Marion was sealed once Wish TV, WNDY, and Wayne TV were pulled from Bright House Networks at 12:35 a.m. on Friday, October 3, 2008. Why some people said the Duran show on June 29, 2012 may be a common assumption, but when my daughter, Jenna, and her transgendered wife, Tiffany, knew and flat out said, Ava is not doing well and a change of environment would help.
Ava spent nearly 2 years fixing 20 years of damage that was started by Jenny Conrad and Dr. Vance Maloney. Had Ava stayed in Marion, Ava would have filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy pretty much. The only negative of Ava Zinn relocating from Marion to Fort Wayne has to be debt consolidation and unable to find financing for a car and a home that would permanently solve the transportation issue. Ava has and housing stability. Another negative is no longer being able to watch the news from Indianapolis. No wonder Ava Zinn now calls Marion, Indiana as New Naptown and never calls Indianapolis as Naptown after the Indianapolis Colts won Super Bowl 41. Lots of positives of Ava relocating from Marion to Fort Wayne. Ava permanently solved the Wish TV Bright House dispute and now is doing a hell of a lot better and is actually thriving in Fort Wayne, unlike Marion. I had a feeling someone was going to blame Jenny Conrad, Dr. Vane Maloney, Buzz Nesbitt, and Cal Blumhorst. It was their actions on September 27, 2001 and October 3, 2008, and by the time Ava finally found a resolution, it did take nearly 20 years to resolve. Negative people like Conrad, Maloney, Nesbitt, and Blumhorst are going to get what is coming to them for basically giving Ava Zinn that one-way ticket away from Marion to Fort Wayne. They did the crime to Ava, and now they are doing the time hanging their heads in a deep and humiliating shame. I will say in the event should Ava Zinn return to Indiana Wesleyan University as a student, I would say Ava Zinn is going to personally pay out $1,000 as a condition/settlement and even though in my opinion, have almost everything she needs to return to Indiana Wesleyan University, Ava Zinn will need to admit the truth once and for all. Paige Lank, Seth Conley, and Jenna McCoy basically blew the whistle when Ava attended Indiana Wesleyan University. Ashley Lopez's tip that Ava Zinn was the IWU housing policy in 2019 after 18 years cracked a now 22-year mystery.
I will say in conclusion, it was the failure of our local and county elected officials in Grant County to provide the Ava Zinn with a firm proposal for a new facility that led Ms. Ava Zinn to accept an offer from Fort Wayne in Allen County, Indiana to live, work, and play in a new facility in that city.
5 years, plus a cat and dog later, plus Brianna. You can tell the difference. Difference as night and day. Comparing to where I was 5 years ago to now, it is clear as night and day. A lot has improved since I relocated to Fort Wayne. Okay, here we go. I'm reading the story about the relocation of yours truly from Marion to Fort Wayne, Indiana, that happened on May 14th, 2018. Now, what happened was, in September of 2017 in Marion, I had signed up to go on the Housing Choice voucher wait list in Marion. And this was right after I had made a visit to Fort Wayne. And what I saw up there was my first time since 1993 at that time. But in 2017, by September 2017, I had applied to be on the waiting list for the Housing Choice voucher. And that was when I knew I had to act. I had said to folks in Marion, like the late Bob Irsay, who moved to Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis. And it's hard to believe next year marks 40 years after the Baltimore Colts relocated to Indianapolis. And he said, I have no intentions of moving the team. If I did, I would tell you about it. If you like the Colts so much, why don't you treat me right? That is what was going on in Marion. Now this is 27. This is the fall of 2017 I'm talking about here. And then once the Marion, Indiana Housing Authority contacted me via mail, that was when I had to make the move. Because a few senior friends of mine and a few senior staff, like Hank and George and who was it? I want to say late Alexander Moffat, but it's not right. I'm trying to remember who. If I remember right, it was Maribel Mort. But I'll find out eventually. Then in January 2018, I honestly knew my time in Marion was done. I knew from that moment when one of my neighbors happened to be dumpster diving naked. January 2018. Now this was about a week after I had gone to the Voc Rehabilitation on the northwest side of Marion. Now this is where the Social Security, BMV, and the Indiana DCS are currently. I will never forget what I was doing. Now, a few of my consultants, and only one of them, made the move to Fort Wayne with me. Or should I say two at the time. And one of them still with me after all this time, 5 years later. I do remember how many packs of cigarettes that day I was smoking at the time, which was a record that has since been broken. It was 2.5 packs of cigarettes that day. And this was on January 19th, 2018. It was a Friday. I knew when I looked at Ann Satley's eyes, and I looked at my case coordinator over at Cornerstone, which I'm not going to name, but a few of my consultants that did not make the move to Marion with me, and I knew this was good. Although they couldn't help, Voc Rehab couldn't help me further at the time, and I was given something in the mail from Voc Rehab that I did not open until I relocated to Fort Wayne. Things were starting to improve. Now at that time, I had just been prescribed I had just taken hydroxine, and I've been on that drug ever since, aside from a 1-year hiatus last year. And I had just been prescribed that, and from that moment on, I knew things was gonna start changing for the better, at least for me. But for the folks in Marion that I left behind, they were gonna be mad. They were gonna be mad no matter what I did. Then, in February 2018, when I got the notice from the Marion Housing Authority of the briefing, I knew this was my one opportunity. And I had to take it. I had to take that opportunity very seriously. Once I got the Section 8 voucher, or should I say the Housing Choice voucher, at the Marion Housing Authority, on February 22nd, 2018, I knew I had to transfer that to the Fort Wayne Housing Authority. And then I made the announcement on February 23rd, 2018. I will never forget what I was doing. February 23rd, 2018. I was at the community support program in Marion. And I had made the announcement, Ava Zinn is moving to Fort Wayne. Some people were cheering, but others were like, whoa. And a lot of people were in shock. Like, and in disbelief. Like, never before in their lives. And obviously, the folks at the community support program in Marion were upset. And let me tell you, this was pretty much something at least 16 years in the making at that time. And though I am a little bit irritated that it did take 16 years and an additional 3 years. No, 2 years to officially find another college to attend. And from that moment on, I knew things were starting to change for the better. But I had a lot of questions that I had to consider. And I had to get everything prepared. Now, by that time, I had spent almost 10 years and $25,000, or should I say, I have spent 20 years and approximately, get this, $50,000 from the time I started Avrons and Holdings back in 1999, and fast forward to February 23rd, I had spent 20 years and $50,000 preparing for that move from Marion to Fort Wayne. Half of that $50,000 was used by almost 13 credit cards I had at one time. from 2008 until 2018 when I moved to Fort Wayne. Because I was pretty much getting nowhere in Marion. My needs was just not getting met. Or if they were, it was not good enough. Or should I say, very inadequate. And the rest is history. Hey, Ava? I heard what you said about you moved to Fort Wayne 5 years ago. But me? I was in my father's penis, unaware I'd be at the Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control when I was a kitten. So, I didn't say anything, or say much, but I do know Ava's doing a damn fine job at doing this journalism BS. Hey, it's not journalism BS, Caprice. This is my job, Caprice. This is what I do. That's in addition to being a voice actress and film, television producing. Gabriella. Yeah? Yeah. I apologize. You didn't get any screen time. But you will now. Well, I didn't realize you were living in another county in 2018. And back then, I was just pretty much a sperm in my father's penis, as Caprice said, or probably even further. Maybe my great-grandpa, or my great-great-great-grandpa, for all I know. Or perhaps my grandfather. Yeah, you're sort of right, Gabriella. Yeah. But just call me Ella. I don't mind you calling me Gabriella, Ava, but Ella's okay. Well, folks, my job in producing season 4 of Caprice and Ella is done. And guess what? Time for me to produce what I have in store for not only season 5, but watch this trailer. In 2018, I relocated from Marion, Indiana to Fort Wayne. They say it's a great place to call home, even though Van Buren, Indiana is my hometown. A great place to raise a cat and dog with some children, right? Nope. Not us. I hope you've got good liability insurance, Ava. Oh my God, I I've adopted a couple of little devils. In me! Good bad. Caprice and Ella, the movie. Rated R. You got that right. It is Caprice and Ella, the movie. And production of that film is going to begin, and it'll have some cast, additional cast. There's going to be a good cast, in addition to yours truly, Caprice, Ella, Brianna, Carly, Rachel, Donna, newcomer Jackson Dugan, the Black Cat, and before I say goodnight, I want to welcome Jackson Dugan to the cast of Caprice and Ella. I'm Ava Zen and Ryan Youth to help promote a child's education. Have them immunized, and may Fort Wayne's good news be yours. And it has been mine for the past 5 years. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next season for Caprice and Ella Season 5 to start in August 2023.
I'm Donna Dugan. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button to never miss a notification, video, or an episode from Caprice and Ella. Please remember to visit capriceandella.avazin.com for all of the latest news and information, as well as full episodes in 4K Ultra High Definition where available, or in high definition. Also visit us on most social media platforms. We will see you next time.
Want more Caprice and Ella? Subscribe to our channel and get notified of new videos. Also visit capriceandella.avazin.com for updates and watch full episodes now in 4K Ultra High Definition.